All right, hello everybody. How's everyone doing? Get off your phones. Come on. It's one good panel today. I'm kidding. They were all fabulous. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the topic which sounds pretty exciting to most of you. Can Dubai become the aviation capital of the world? So by default, nobody's actually claimed this title. So yes, we are. We are the aviation capital of the world. So I'll talk a little bit about the inspiration of how we were going to go about this panel. So I'm the incubator manager of Intilaq. Intilaq was started when His Highness Sheikh Mohammed tweeted in October 2015. He said that we want to make Dubai the aviation capital of the world. We want to provide people with the right products, technologies, and services to make this dream legible. And the way that we came about it is we need to have the right ecosystem playing the right roles to make this happen. So today we have an amazing panel who have a very diverse background who are going to be talking about the government perspective, the private sector perspective, as well as one of our own startups. So I would like to start with Mr. Raed Kuhail, who is the CIO of Dubai Tourism, Commerce and Marketing.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. My name is Raed Kuhail, and I'm the Executive Director of Information Technology at DTCM, Dubai Tourism. I'm also a scholar of the Silicon Valley. I got my engineering degree from UC Berkeley and worked in several startups, different sectors, financials, healthcare, e-commerce. And I am very proud to say that I had the experience of witnessing the process of incepting an idea all the way through becoming a viable product. And I am lucky enough to be able to share this experience here. I did some consulting with Emirates Airlines. I was part of the team that built Al Hilal Bank from the ground up. And I am extremely privileged to be working at DTCM, which is one of the most awesome places to be working on, where we are challenged every day to create new things, new ideas, and to be part of the team that comes to work every day to help bring 20 million visitors by 2020. So that's my
Thank you
story.
so much, Mr. Raed. And Ms. Kirsten Kutz, Head of Communication for GE Digital for the MENAT region. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten. I came to Dubai about 7 years ago, and I've been working for GE ever since. My previous role was leading innovation and entrepreneurship communications, so basically any connection that we had from a corporate into the startup world was under me, and now I've moved into our newest business, which is the software business. So a lot of people think of GE only as the industrial side, but we are the world's digital industrial company. So I now lead communications for the digital business in the MENAT region. Very excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kirsten. And finally, we have Mr. Omar Abu Faraj, who is the co-founder at Dupes. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Aya. I'm Omar Abu Faraj, co-CEO and co-founder of Dupes. Before Dupes, I worked in management consulting for 8 years. Have an MBA from MIT with a focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. Ever since I had my MBA degree, the seed of entrepreneurship was planted in my mind. And I was always seeking ways to find this entrepreneurial idea and build it and make it happen. And this is when Dupes came about 6 months ago. We launched 6 months ago. We're part of the Intilaq Incubator. And just for those of you who don't know what Dupes is, it's a same-day luggage delivery service. And our objective is to give customers more time and comfort when they travel. So they can give us their bags early in the day, spend their day luggage-free, and then head to the airport or come back to the hotel without the hassle of their bags.
Great, thank you so much. What we'd like to start with is a little bit about, from Mr. Raed, we want to talk about the recent developments in digital innovation, IoT, and blockchain. Where do you think tourists are going to be experiencing the most impact?
Well, I think different technology trends affect tourism sector differently. If we look at the digital innovation, tourism sector has been really one of the leaders and the early adopters of digital innovation. Think of when the internet first came out. One of the early delightful experiences that we had was the ability to book online. And that came before online banking, it came before social media. And since then, early on, we were able to build up on the innovation. You look at the genius experience of Booking.com and its scarcity effect implementation. It tells you 2 rooms left, 3 people are looking at this. It's really engaging you in a very innovative way early on. The innovation in the pricing model of Priceline.com, the early personalization of Expedia, and the list goes on. So for digital innovation, I believe the tourism sector gets a big green check. For Internet of Things, due to the limitation of the physical sensors, it only touches the experience phase of the tourist. It doesn't really play into the booking or in the advocation phase. It really has that limitation. But in my humble opinion, blockchain will be the home run as far as tourism is concerned. Because when you think of tourism sector and the tourist journey, it's almost the only sector or the only journey where it starts in one city and ends up in a different country. And for that, you need a global, holistic framework such as blockchain that will enable you to do amazing things. Things like you'll be able to create a loyalty program that you can redeem and earn points from your home country and easily use those in your destination. From the business side, you'll be able to have transparency on the excursion packages pricing, and you'll be able to apply these efficiencies, which are extremely important for the end consumer. So definitely blockchain is the way to go for tourism from this point on.
That's great. So I think what we can hear now is a lot of companies, including as well as government, are moving towards more innovative processes. So GE is now moving a little bit more towards digital, right? So as the new communications manager for GE Digital for MENAT, what do you think is now becoming one of the most exciting parts of this new domain? And what opportunities do you find for startups to operate there? And if you could really just highlight in your answer how we can actually leverage the right resources to compete on a global scale.
So I think in the aviation sector, the barriers to entry for startups were often very high because you're talking about aircraft engines, you're talking about hardware, you're talking about billions of dollars that go into the research and very, very long time cycles often. Now moving from only doing sort of the industrial side, the manufacturing and the services, now we've moved into the digital space. We have what we call Predix, which is an open source platform similar to iOS or Android, on which startups can build their own apps built specifically for industry. So the platform can handle huge amounts of data. You know, one flight is something like 500 terabytes of data. A single flight, 10 hours. And this kind of platform can help to process that data to allow for analysis that allows for better efficiencies. So when it's talking about software versus hardware, the barriers to entry for startups are a lot lower.
Very interesting. That's wonderful. So now we can see that GE is actually talking innovation and digital. So we have a lot more people who are now being welcomed into the space. So now that we're on the topic, how do you think open source technology can contribute to startups' development and expansion within the aviation and tourism space?
I think Omar should answer that.
Yeah, definitely. So for startup, the most important thing, especially at the early stages, is speed. And when it comes to building your technology, you want to have a future-proof technology as soon as possible to enable your operations and your customer acquisition process. The fact that now we are in an age in which we have a lot of software solutions readily available and can talk to each other very easily is giving us a very strong head start in building our technology. For us, a key advantage of open source is the fact that we can really focus on our core business. We don't have to put a lot of effort in getting an ERP system or a CRM system or all of that. The solutions are there, and we can get them quite easily as compared to before. For Dubs, what we want to focus on is a secure luggage transportation service, and this is where now we're focusing most of our energy on. Just one additional thing to add is, in the travel industry, big players are here to stay, and they are in control of the customers that come in. So as a startup, integrating within these big companies is key and is a fundamental requirement. And the fact that big companies and us are going towards open source is facilitating the discussion, at least from a technology perspective.
It speeds up everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. What do you think, Mr. Raed?
I believe that open source is an amazing approach to test your ideas early on. And you just have to be careful that you're comfortable digging into that source code and tweaking it to your liking. There's another area of open source services that are more offered as a software as a service, things like some artificial intelligence services that was talked about even here earlier on. And this will open an opportunity for a lot of startups to be able to, if you allow me to say, configure this digital brain, if you will. There will be a series of startups that will specialize only in knowing how to tweak and configure those readily made artificial intelligence engines. So yeah, the future is amazing as far as open source is concerned and tourism.
All right, so I'm going to pass
GE doesn't work with open source.
I just told you we work with open source. Go to Predix, predix.io. It's an open source platform. You'll see microservices, you'll see data sets. It's pretty cool.
So where do you think, where do you predict, Kirsten, then there's an opportunity for startups in developing in the travel and tourism space? So what type of ideas do you think could be revolutionary?
I think startups really need to look at the ideas that can become truly disruptive. So we've all heard the examples of different startups that have completely overturned different aspects of the travel industry. And I think, if you look at all of the different stages of travel, not only focusing on booking, for instance, not only focusing on the in-flight entertainment, but looking at the entire ecosystem around travel. Emirates has a great travel journey, and it looks at all of these different points on the timeline, and these are all places that are ripe for a disruption and ripe for new ideas, because a lot of them have been in place. The way you do things has been in place for a long time, and so I think those opportunities, when you're really looking at the human aspect of it, the people that are actually traveling, is where the startups should focus.
That's great. And I think we can all agree that one of the most important things for startups and for big corporates as well is data. So it's really important for us to be able to share that data and have that data. So Dubai government has also realized that that is quite important and made many laws, many regulations to facilitate the sharing of that data with startups as well as private sector. And finally, government. So what do you think that means for Dubs? So where do you think some of the gaps are, perhaps, in terms of acquiring that data? And where does Dubai Tourism think, as well, we should be getting all of that data from and sharing it as well?
I mean, typical journey of a startup starts by building your minimum viable product, generating your own data, and iterating on it, whether from customer experience on operational perspective. The fact that in Dubai there's a strong push of sharing data between government, big corporations, and startups is giving us a big head start in terms of focusing our energy and focusing on let's say, narrowing our focus on where we believe we have the best chance of increasing our operational efficiency and getting maximum impact in the market. And in addition to that, the data that's been made readily available by Dubai government is giving us a lot of good information on what type of customer segments we can target, their behavior, and how to optimize our acquisition and communication with them.
Mr. Raed?
Yeah, we truly believe that in order to achieve a smart journey and a smart experience, you need data. And we're very privileged that our leaders at Dubai Tourism encourage us and mandate that we share data as much as humanly possible in the most secure and appropriate way. If you go to our website today, visit Dubai.com, you'll be able to see how many tourists come into Dubai by source market and by segment. So we are leaders when it comes to sharing data to the public. And internally, we constantly share data with our fellow government entities based on the needs and based on the security model. We have created an entire classification exercise where we are extremely aware of what each data represents and what's the security level of it. In addition, we are constantly partnering with many entities like Emirates Airlines, for example, to do innovative projects and to try to take this additional step to be the best in the world.
That's great. And you know, I obviously sit at Emirates most of my week, and sometimes at GE. And a lot of the times I have young startups come and say, I want to have a word with you. I want to tell you about my startup. And I keep seeing that over and over again. I'm going to ask the panel, but hopefully later on open for questions. You know, why is it that most startups actually want to work with big corporations? So what do you think, Ms. Kirsten?
So I think it's that you can't not do it. We're all parts of the same ecosystem. Government and private and multinationals and startups, we're all part of the same ecosystem, and we all need to work together to actually achieve the results that we're looking for. And it's not that there's sort of a hierarchy anymore where, you know, big companies are always going to win out and the only way to work with a smaller company is to buy it. You know, it's not how it works anymore. There's so much more access, there's so much more information that good ideas can really come to life without being part of a big company. So I think, you know, startups want to work with corporates, and corporates want to work with startups too, because you know, at GE it's a big part of our culture now. We understand that there's disruption everywhere, and that if we don't disrupt ourselves, we are going to be disrupted by a company with 2 people or 500 people or, you know, 20,000 people, a company smaller than ours. Most companies are smaller than ours. So we understand that there's a need to work together and to build that ecosystem together, and that we're all the better for it.
And from the perspective of a startup.
Yeah, definitely. Partnering with big corporations is a huge asset for a startup. It can be summarized in 3 things. One is access to customers and helping us scale. The second is access to industry expertise and operational expertise as well. And when it comes to travel and aviation specifically, regulatory advisory and alignment with regulatory bodies is very important. Now, a lot of what we said sounds very positive from the outside, yet the effort that's required from both the startup and the corporation to make the partnership work is, I mean, a lot of effort is required. The startup, on one hand, needs to put a lot of effort in scaling and achieving relevance with respect to the corporation. And the corporation, once they agree that they want to support the startup, having an operating model in which there's a quick response rate to the needs of the startup is very important. Startups, they operate on a very lean structure, and delays, even if it's only a few weeks or few months, can have a big impact on the sustainability of a startup.
Yeah, sure. I think corporates tapping into the startup talent is very strategic and can be extremely effective, especially if you manage that relationship very well. The corporates can give their expertise and their support to the startups, and the startup can provide the energy and the fast pace. So I see it as a very, very productive synergy between them.
I completely agree. And I guess this might even connect to our next question. Which is, you know, speaking of our region, you know, I was at WAMDA's conversation the other day with His Excellency Bintou, and he was saying, you know, the first 3 minutes of his presentation was about the airline and the airports, and the growth of this country really started from the ports. So if we're going to be talking about igniting that space, we have to mention Intilaq at least to be able to use it as a reference. You know, in order to create that that response from the market, to come up with more ideas in the aviation space, you know, how can we as a city start to benefit from becoming, you know, for the fact that there's more acceptance of having locally rooted startups? How can we actually see that Intilaq is sparking that?
Yeah, but being a participant in Intilaq, I mean, I can sit for probably 30 minutes alone talking about the benefits we've got from Intilaq. But again, the access to industry experts, the access to experts in the startup field, to investors have been critical for us. But there's one element that I cannot overstate, is the access and collaboration opportunities we're having with other startups. And the power in startups is finding synergies between them and going to the market and to big corporations with a unified product that addresses multiple issues and multiple challenges for the customer and for big players. And the support that Intilaq and other startup platforms are giving in Dubai, that are giving especially in the travel and aviation industry, this all leads to an environment of Dubai in which we will become net exporters of innovation when it comes to travel rather than net importers. I mean, Dubai is already in many ways the aviation capital of the world if you just look at travel numbers alone. But the defensibility lies in having the proper innovation ecosystem that allows you to continually innovate and disrupt and bring innovation from Dubai to the world.
And Mr. Ad, what do you think about that? So currently the space of which Intilaq is operating is aviation and travel, but do you see opportunities for Dubai tourism starting to collaborate with startups and offer more opportunities to these young guys to come out and explain what they think could potentially be the solutions to big problems?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think it's amazing that there's an entity like yours that is dedicated to support startups within a specific space. That really says a lot about the progression of the city, and it's extremely refreshing and encouraging and exciting. Now, as far as Dubai tourism, there's always problems that we require to be solved, and we always tap into the energy of the startups, and we constantly consider these things in the proper manner. So definitely there is a future for us to be working with startups.
All right, so I'll pass this question on to Ms. Kirsten. So obviously we talked about the movement towards digital for GE. So what type of initiatives are GE doing, maybe locally and globally, to contribute to Dubai's vision of becoming the aviation capital of the world?
I think a really big one is Intilaq. I mean, it was born out of just an idea to do potentially an open innovation challenge. GE's done a lot of these with different partners. When Emirates came to us and said, you know, we want to do something together, Intilaq was sort of born out of the idea that we want something sustainable, but we want something in a particular industry where we can, you know, that's really a sweet spot. You know, there are a lot of food delivery apps out there, and there are a lot of e-commerce apps out there, and we thought we want to look at something that's going to be particular to an industrial sector. So it's actually the first industry-focused incubator in the country, perhaps in the region, and we would love to see and be part of and support others that look at different industries as well. The aviation sector in particular, other than having a great partner in Emirates, you know, it has so many knock-on effects in different areas. So you've got the flights, right? Yes, but you have airports, and you have logistics, and you have passengers, and you have hotels, and you have all these other things that are affected by aviation and travel. And so we felt it was an industry that can really make a big impact economically for the city.
I can't tell you how many times when we went out to university communities as well as startup communities, we'd ask the crowd, you know, what type of ideas would you contribute to the airline? So what could you improve? And the amount of times I heard, why don't we just create an aircraft just for babies so that we don't have to hear them crying the whole time? Or, you know, why don't we make sure that all the air hostesses are nurses so that they can take care of young children on flights? So many interesting ideas came about, and I think a lot of people were pulling the thread that Mr. Raed was talking about earlier, where people have interesting ideas that they can contribute, and our future has to be as engaging as our ideas. So today we have to start investing into that, and it's very impressive to see big corporations talking to the little guys, right? So size matters, not so much anymore in these types of programs, which is great. So that brings me to you know, the question, and again to Kirsten. So His Highness, when he was talking about you know, the physical infrastructure that we have to have present here, what does GE have to contribute to the community to help build you know, build that vision?
In terms of the aviation space, I mean, GE has long been involved in the engine side. So more than 2/3 of Emirates engines, and many of Fly Dubai and Air Arabia and Etihad, all of these are GE engines. And they are, you know, more and more efficient. They are, you know, quieter. They are, you know, continuing to improve in terms of technology. So there's that side of it. But then now there's the whole sort of wider travel side that's opened up because of digital. So the Predix platform, you can build apps that can do anything, that can make an airport more efficient, that can make a food and beverage run on the airplane more efficient, that just take data and analyze it in a way that you can improve processes and improve technology and improve maintenance. So I think, you know, we're lucky to be at sort of all ends of the spectrum in terms of aviation and travel.
So I'll finalize the panel with this exciting question. So Sheikh Ahmed mentioned in his statement, adding on to the tweet, he said, you know, it will not just be the airport, the airline, it will be the entire ecosystem working together. With the startups at the epicenter of that play, how do you see Doobs, Amar, and other startups contributing to the big picture? And I would also like to know from both Mrs. Kirsten and Mr. Raed, what do you think will also become you know, part of that vision? What do we have to start doing to be able to define that gap and overcome it as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, startups, or let's say Dubai, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest hub of travel in the world. A big reason why we reached this stage is because of the growth and the excellent service the big companies provide: Emirates Airlines, Danata, Dubai Airports, DTCM, etc. But now we're at a critical stage in which we're moving from a service-based economy to an experience-based economy. And this is where the power of startups come, because startups take a focused problem and develop a localized solution and a very efficient solution to it. And as startups grow and they provide solutions to the customer experience across their journey, the customer, when they come to Dubai, they will get a seamless experience and they will get to experience Dubai and enjoy it the most. If we look specifically at Doobs, as mentioned earlier, our objective is to give customers more time and comfort when they're traveling in or out of Dubai. And a key pillar of the vision of DTCM and Dubai government is to have travelers to spend more time and to spend more in Dubai. And we believe, along with other startups, that we would be a key enabler for that.
Ms. Kirsten?
So I'd say, I mean, we really want to see startups that have the new ideas. You know, there are a lot, as I touched on earlier, there are a lot of startups that are improving processes or improving systems, and that's great, but it's not, it's incremental, right? It's not disruptive. And I think what we need here is really disruptive, really big ideas, something really different. And if you really believe in it and you have something different, then work hard at it, be resilient, and make sure that you have the time and the again, resiliency to be able to withstand challenges that come your way, and you can be that next really crazy, amazing success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Solving immediate, obvious problems is one thing, but providing a solution for something we didn't know we were suffering from is another different level. Several years back, we never knew that we had a deep problem that we couldn't connect with people digitally all around the world. We just didn't have that big problem that we were suffering from. And sure enough, Facebook is one of the top success stories in the history of the world. So to build up on what Kirsten is saying, and I totally agree with what she's saying, we have to look at something that people didn't know could give them comfort and ease into their life. And on that note, I recommend everyone to read the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, because it really shapes your psyche on how to position yourself in knowing and understanding what's the next best thing.
I think that's exactly right. And if I can maybe close the panel as well from a quote from Dave McClure from 500 Startups. He spoke at DFA about a month or two back, and he said, you know, startups need to start focusing on the problems out there instead of the solutions. So you really have to go out there, walk into big corporations, get connected, and ask people what are the biggest challenges that they have. Because now we have a few players that are really big in the space that are opening their ears. Who knows who's next? So thank you so much, everybody, for attending the panel, and thank you to our wonderful panelists.
Thank you.